Hi friends, thanks so much for picking up a copy of the French Press Cardi. This video supplement is a compilation of clips I made during the French Press Crochet Along for this project. If you hear me reference the crochet along during these clips, please ignore it. And if you need additional help past what's in this video, you can email tlyarncrafts@gmail.com. I hope this video is helpful. Enjoy! We're going to start with our left ribbing. So you'll want to pull your yarn and make a slip knot to start the ribbing. And we're going to work our ribbing with our 5.5mm hook. So insert the hook into your slip knot, yarn over and pull through for a chain. You'll want to make a total of 13 chains. So there's 13. And then starting in the second chain from the hook, you'll place a single crochet. So not the first chain, but the second chain. Insert, yarn over, pull up the loop, yarn over, pull through one for your single crochet. And do that in each chain across, and you'll end up with 12 single crochet stitches. At the end of your row, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. And now to make our ribbing, we're going to chain one and turn. And working in just the back loop, we're going to place single crochets. So when you look at the top of your stitches, you can see these little V's. Those V's are the front loop and the back loop of your stitches. We're going to work just through the back loop. So inserting through the back loop only, yarn over and pull up the loop, yarn over, pull through two to complete the single crochet. Again, for the next stitch, we've got a front loop and a back loop. We're working just through the back loop. And we're going to do that for each stitch across, single crocheting in the back loop to create our ribbing. Chain one and turn to continue with your ribbing. Now I'm going to be making a slightly smaller swatch for our demo, so I'm going to continue my single crochets in the back loop for the number of rows that I'm going to do, but based on the size that you're working, you'll want to adjust the number of ribbing rows that you do. And once you meet that number of ribbing rows, you're going to meet me back here to work on the left front. Once our ribbing is complete, we'll want to switch hooks to our larger hook, our 6.5mm in this case. Insert, then we're going to chain one, and working along the ends of the rows of our ribbing, we're going to single crochet in the end of each row. So I only have 15 rows here. I should end up with 15 single crochets. Of course, you're going to have longer rows of ribbing, so you're going to end up with more single crochet stitches, obviously. But I'm going to work a single crochet in the end of each row. So here's one for me. There's 2, 3, here's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, there's 12, there we go, 13, here's 14, and one last one makes 15. Just like that. And we go to our larger hook because we're now going to start working on the body of our cardigan. So this was the cuff that's going to go around our arm, and then this is going to work up the sleeve and go towards the body. Now we're moving on to row 2 of the left front. We're going to start with a chain 3, which counts as our first extended single crochet and a chain 1. Turning our work, we're going to skip the first 2 single crochet stitches. So skip this first one and this second one, and we're going to work into this third one here between my fingers. And we're going to place an extended single crochet in there. So insert, yarn over and pull up a loop, 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2. Chain 1, skip the next single crochet, extended single crochet in the following stitch. Insert, yarn over, pull up the loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, follow that with a chain 1. And we're going to repeat that across, skip the next single crochet, extended single crochet in the next stitch, followed by a chain 1. There we go. So you should be able to count your stitches. It'll say at the end of this row how many stitches you're meant to end up with based on the size that you're working. So definitely make sure you're counting your stitches throughout to make sure you have the right number. Now we're going to move into an area of increases. So again, this is the cuff that's going to be around our arm for the base of our sleeve, and we'll want to increase a bit as we move into the body of our cardigan. So we're going to start off with a chain 3 and turn our work. Now, since this chain 3 counts as an extended single crochet and a chain 1, we would normally skip this first extended single crochet here if we were just doing our rows evenly. But since we're increasing, we're actually going to start our row here for row 3. So we're going to place an extended single crochet here, chain 1, and then place an extended single crochet in the next extended single crochet, and follow that with a chain 1. And we're going to repeat that across the row. So extended single crochet in the stitch followed by a chain 1. And we'll place our last extended single crochet in the second chain of our starting chain 3 here, just like that. So what we essentially did here is by placing 2 extended single crochets essentially in this stitch, we increased our number of extended single crochets by 1. So we are increasing here. So for rows 4 through 7, we're going to repeat that process. We're going to repeat row 3. So start with a chain 3. We're going to turn our work and then extended single crochet in this first stitch. Chain 1. And then extended single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1 across the row. So this is row 4. So we're going to repeat row 3 for rows 4 through 7. Make sure you're keeping an eye on your count. At the end of row 7, your work should look like this. Since we increased evenly on one side on each of the last 5 rows, we kind of have like this funnel shape. So you'll see how this starts to make sense. This ribbed portion is going to go around your arm, and then this makes up the sleeve, so we widened out as we move into the body. At the end of row 7, you want to make sure you place a couple of markers. I like to use locking stitch markers because these stitch markers are going to stay in place for quite a while. So I'm going to mark the beginning and the end of row 7. So I'm just going to wrap my marker right around the turning chain on the right hand side and around the last stitch that I made here on the left hand side. Just like that. And I'm going to lock my markers because we're going to need that for several different pieces here in the top half and the bottom half of our cardigan. So now to move into row 8, before we were increasing, now we're not going to increase anymore. So row 8 starts with a chain 3. That was 1, 2, 3. There we go. And turn our work. So since that starting chain 3 counts as a stitch and a chain 1, we're going to skip this first extended single crochet here, the marked one, and we're going to move into the second one. So insert, pull up the loop, yarn over, pull through 1, yarn over, pull through 2, follow that with a chain 1, and this is where we get into our extended single crochet mesh. So working an extended single crochet into the next stitch, follow with a chain 1, extended single crochet into the next stitch, follow with a chain 1. And we're going to do that across the row. And this is row 8. Just a couple more stitches here, working into this extended single crochet and then working the last stitch in the second chain of our turning chain. Just going to scoop my stitch marker out the way, work right into that chain. And then we're going to chain 3, turn our work, continuing with another repeat of row 8, skipping this first extended single crochet right here, working into the second one. And so we're just working evenly here. There's not going to be any increases in this section. All right, let's take a look at our work. So as you can see, now that we're working evenly without any increases, our work is just starting to go up and it's not widening out anymore. So at this point, the directions say to continue repeating row 8, which is working evenly in our extended single crochet mesh, until your work measures a certain length based on the size that you're making. So here's a little insight on how to measure from here. So we're actually going to measure from the base of our ribbing all the way up to our working row. And let's say we were making the small size, we would continue this until it was 15 inches. So right now I'm at 6 3/4, and I would continue till I got to 15 inches, including the ribbing. Now, let's talk about making some alterations. I know that there were some folks who wanted to make their sleeves longer, make adjustments based on their height or the length of their arms. Now, just to give you a visual of what we're working on here, this piece will eventually be folded in half. So these stitch markers will come together. And we can see that we've got our ribbing here, which will go around our arm. We've got the increase, and now we're working on the bodice of the cardigan, the top half of it at least. So this is your sleeve for now, and eventually we're going to work up to 15 inches, and that 15 inches is going to hit at the left side of your neck. So let's say, which side would be our left side? This side? The left, obviously. No, that's the right. That would technically be the right. So if this was the left side, let's say this is your head and this is your neck. You want to make this long enough to come to the side of your neck, because then we're going to do a bit of neck shaping for the opening of the cardigan, and then we'll work the right side. I think I have this backwards. I don't know. But anyway, when you're making adjustments on your cardigan, you can actually lay this over your body. So this would be your shoulder, and then your elbow would be over here. This is meant to hit just at or right above your elbow. That's the original idea around the shaping of this cardigan. But if you want the sleeves longer or shorter, you can make this section, the repeats of row 8, longer. You can make adjustments here in the increases that come from the sleeve into the body. You can even make your beginning ribbing longer. It's completely up to you. I definitely encourage you guys to customize your cardigans to make sure they fit how you want them to. But ultimately, if you're sticking with me and working the pattern exactly how it's written, you're going to measure from your working row down to the bottom of your ribbing to get the length of the section that you need to finish off the left front. And then once you've done that, you'll want to count the number of rows that you completed, not including the marked row, but of your row 8 repeats. So this was my first row 8. This was a row 8 repeat, and I'd count all the way until I have that 15 inches. I'd count how many rows there were, and then we're going to write that into the pattern. And there's a section to write that in right here. So once you've completed your left front and you're ready to work on your neck shaping, you can meet me right back here. So I finished here what I'm going to do on my row 8 repeats. So here's a quick tip on how to count your rows so you can mark them in your pattern. So we don't want to count our marked row because this was row 7. We want to count row 8 all the way up to our working row. So here's my row 8 right here. Here's 8, 9, oh, sorry. So this is row 8. This counts as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then I want to put that into my pattern. So I left a note for myself here, just ignore that. So I'll put 10 right here. And I'll need that information for later. Now we can get into the neck shaping. So again, like I said before, we're going to eventually fold our top piece over, and then our neck is going to be here. So what we're going to do for the neck shaping is basically work across this row to a point and leave the rest of the stitches open, and that's going to be the opening for our neck. So based on whatever size that you're making, you're going to work across the row and then stop where it says to. So I'm just going to pick a spot to stop. I'm going to do 7 total stitches. So I've got my chain 3, and that counts as an extended single crochet in a chain. So here's 2 for me. Here's 3, 4, 5, here's 6, and 7. So this is where I'm going to stop. And if we look at it, when I fold over, I'm going to continue along this way, working across this row, and that's going to leave the opening for my neck. This will be the front. This side will be the front of my cardigan. So now what I'm going to do is just chain 3, and I'm going to turn my work and continue just working across this shorter section here in my same extended single crochet mesh stitch pattern, just like that, right across the row. Still working my last extended single crochet into the second chain of my turning chain. 1, 2, and 3. And then as I go back the other way, again skipping this stitch, working into the second extended single crochet, chain 1, extended single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, extended single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1. Just like that. Alright. And then the last one into the second chain of the turning chain. Just one more look at that together. As I continue working across, this is going to be the back. When I fold it, this becomes the front, just like that. So you're going to continue working along the back. I'm just going to take a quick peek at the pattern. We're going to repeat that until we have 11 total rows for our neck shaping here. So this counts as 1, 2, 3. So far, we want to repeat this until we have 11. Go ahead and do that. Meet me back here for the right front. All right, so here we are at the end of the neck shaping. For the sake of my swatch, I only did 5 rows, but you will have 11 for your neck opening. Now we want to move on to the right front, and we want to seamlessly get our work back to the correct width. So we just finished our last extended single crochet here, and we'll want to do a series of chains that will set us up to start working our full width of extended single crochet mesh. So in the pattern, it lets you know how many chains to make for the size that you're making. For my small swatch, I'll only need to make 14 chains. So I'm going to chain up my 14. And now I'm going to extended single crochet in the 5th chain from my hook. So I'm going to count down my hook. Here it looks like I'm counting 6. I promise I'm only counting 5. Working under just the 1 loop of my chain. And I'm extended single crocheting as normal there. Chain 1, I'm going to skip the next chain, extended single crochet in the next chain. And I'm going to repeat that down my chain. Chain 1, skip 1, extended single crochet in the next. Chain 1, skip 1, extended single crochet in the next. And this is what's going to get me back to the number of extended single crochets I need for my project to be the correct width. So keep repeating. So now I have a chain 1 here, which is what I would have in between my extended single crochet mesh anyway. And now I'm back and ready to start making my mesh. So I'm going to work into the next extended single crochet stitch on my row, chain 1 into the next extended single crochet stitch, chain 1. And that's how we're seamlessly adding the width back to our project to start working the right shoulder. So working straight across our row. Last stitch goes into the second chain of the starting chain 3, chain 3, oh, there we go, and turn our work. Again, working down the row, and we're working evenly, not doing any kind of increases here. So we're going to skip this first stitch, work into our second stitch. Extended single crochet there, followed by a chain 1, and continue working our mesh across. So let's get to the end of this row together. There's very little seams in this project, and that's completely on purpose. All right, so this is an extended single crochet here. We're working into that. Chain 1, extended single crochet is here. Working into that and chain 1, just reestablishing our mesh here. There we go. 1 here. And then we're going to work our last extended single crochet into the second chain of that starting chain. And then chain 3, and we'd be turning our work. There we go. So this is how we're reestablishing our neckline. We can see that here. So now it makes a little bit more sense, I hope, kind of why we had that opening, because this is the neck opening. And when we fold, we can see that this is actually the top of our cardigan, and this is that front neck opening. So we're going to repeat until we have the number of rows here that matches the number of row 8 and row 8 repeats that we had on this side. So we wrote that into our pattern. For me, I had 10. So I'm going to repeat this until I have 10 total rows starting here. So I have 1 and 2 rows so far. I'm going to repeat this until I get to 10. You'll want to repeat it until you get to the number that equals the number between your neck shaping and your markers. And I'll meet you back there for the rest of the right side. Now I've completed my proper number of rows on this side. I'm ready to move on to what's called next row in the pattern under the right front. So what we're going to start off with is a chain 3. So we're going to chain up 3 and turn our work. So of course that chain 3 counts as an extended single crochet in a chain 1. We're going to skip this first extended single crochet here, extended single crochet in the next stitch. Chain 1, and now we're going to extended single crochet 2 together over these next 2 stitches. So just watch me first. So we're going to pull up a loop in the next stitch, yarn over, pull through 1. Now we have 2 loops on our hook. Now we're going to pull up a loop in the following stitch, yarn over, pull through 1. We've got 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 3, and that's your extended single crochet 2 together. We're going to chain 1, and now we're going to complete our normal extended single crochet mesh across the row. So that extended single crochet 2 together counts as a decrease, because just like we increased right after the ribbing on the other side, we're going to decrease here before we get to the ribbing on this side. So just continuing our extended single crochet mesh across this row. Here we go. And the last one goes into the second chain of the turning chain. So I'm going to chain up my 3, but before I turn, I want to place some markers. So I'll grab my other 2 markers and I'll place them at the beginning and the end of this row. So I'm putting it right around the stitch here and right around the starting chain 3 on this side. And I want to leave these markers here because we're going to repeat this row 4 more times, but we're not going to move our markers from here, okay? So now let's do this row again together. So I've done my chaining up 3, turning my work, skipping the first extended single crochet, of course, extended single crochet in the following stitch, and now extended single crochet 2 together over the next 2 extended single crochets. So pull up a loop in the first stitch, chain 1, pull up a loop in the next stitch, chain 1, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Follow that with a chain 1, extended single crochet, mesh across the row. Just continuing in our pattern stitch. Oh, sorry about that. I think I went back to just regular single crochets, my bad. Extended single crochet mesh. There we go. Got to catch those mistakes. Continuing across. Now when you get to your decrease, you can kind of pick wherever you want to work into this stitch. So the stitches between my fingers here are a decrease. Whatever you decide though, you just want to be consistent with. So I'm going to go into this space right here because it's most reminiscent of where I would enter for a normal extended single crochet. So I'm just going to enter there. Then I've got 2 more stitches. So a stitch here and then in the second chain of the turning chain. 1, 2, and 3. Let's do one more together. Turn my work. I'm going to skip the first stitch, extended single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, and then I'm extended single crochet decreasing over these next 2 stitches. So pull up a loop in the first stitch, chain 1, pull up a loop in the next stitch, chain 1, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on my hook. Chain 1, and then extended single crochet, mesh across the row. So we'll want to repeat this until we have 5 total rows after, or 5 total rows of your next row repeats. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, and 3 here. We'll want to do 2 more rows of this, and then you can meet me here for the right ribbing. We finished our decreases here, so we have a nice little funnel, kind of like we did when we were doing our increases on the other side. So now we're ready to do a couple of rows to set ourselves up for the right ribbing. So we're going to chain 3 here, and we're just going to work an even row of our extended single crochet mesh here. So skipping this first stitch, extended single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, extended single crochet in the next stitch, chain 1, and we're just going to work that across the row, working evenly. No increases, no decreases here. Just a couple of more stitches. Last stitch goes into the second chain of the starting chain 3. All right, and now for our following row, we want to do some single crochet stitches. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. We're going to work a single crochet into each extended single crochet and chain 1 space. So single crochet in this first extended single crochet here, and single crochet in this chain space. Single crochet in the extended single crochet, single crochet into the chain space. And we're going to do that all the way across the row. Single crochet into the extended single crochet, single crochet into the chain space. So we are essentially doing on this right hand side all of the same work we did on the left hand side, but in reverse. Single crochet in the extended single crochet in the chain space, and then single crochet in the second chain of the starting chain 3. All right, so you should have the same number of single crochets here as you did on the left side right after the ribbing. So you can do a count if you need to, but it should be exactly the same. Now we're going to move into the right ribbing, and for the right ribbing, we're going to do my applied ribbing technique. So what we're going to do is switch to our 5.5mm hook, insert our hook here, and then we're going to chain 13, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Starting with the second chain from the hook, we're going to single crochet in each chain across. So we'll end up with 12 single crochet stitches. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, here's 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I'm going to turn our work to start working along these base stitches for our applied ribbing technique. So we're going to slip stitch in the first single crochet here, as well as the next single crochet, working under both loops of those stitches. Now we're going to turn to start working back up our row of single crochet stitches here. We're going to skip these first 2 slip stitches and start working in the back loop of this single crochet right here. So just insert into the back loop there, pull up the loop, and complete a single crochet. And we're going to do that for each single crochet across this row, single crocheting in the back loop only to create our ribbing. And we'll end up with 12 single crochets. Again, we're just maintaining that number of single crochets all the way throughout. So if you get mixed up or anything, just count your single crochets. You should always end up with 12. So I've got one more here. Now I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. Single crochet in the back loop of each single crochet across. So just in the back loop, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, there's 8, 9, there's 10, 11, and one more just in the back loop makes 12. Now we're going to go back to attaching it to the base. So we're going to find our next 2 free single crochet stitches, slip stitch into each of those, turning our work to work back up our ribbing, skipping the first 2 slip stitches, single crochet in the back loop of the single crochet stitch. And that's what we're going to repeat across our row. Meet me towards the end and I'll show you how we're going to finish up, fasten off, and then we're going to sew our sleeves. I'm nearly done with my ribbing here. Just have a couple more stitches on this row. I figured we could work the rest of it together. So I still have 3 more stitches, 3 more single crochets on my base here. So I'm slip stitching in the next 2, turning my work, single crochet in each of the single crochet stitches just in the back loop. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's 9, 10, there we go, 11 and 12. Chaining 1 and turn, and I just have 1 more row of stitches here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And then I just have 1 more single crochet, so I'm going to single crochet into there, or slip stitch rather into there, and I'll be ready to fasten off. And if I count through, I have the same number of rows on my ribbing on this side as I did on my other side. So now I'm just ready to fasten off. I'm going to cut that and pull that loop up and out. So at this point, I'm going to weave in my ends, which just takes a second. You'll want to make sure you weave them in properly. I'm just going to weave it in to get it out of the way for now, for the sake of instruction. Just going to tuck it over here. So we only have 2 ends here because we did so few seams, meaning no seams so far. All right, just get that out of the way for now. So what we want to do now is we're going to sew up our top piece. All right, get this out the way. We'll need scissors, we'll need our tapestry needle, and of course yarn to sew things up. So the entire thing is identical. There's no right or wrong side right now, so you can, I guess, pick the side that you want to be your right side versus your wrong side, but it really doesn't matter. So we're just going to bring our stitch markers together. So the markers on the left side and the markers on the right side need to come together, and these will mark the bottoms of your sleeves. So this is our neck opening, this is the top, and this is the sleeve. We're going to want to sew from the marked stitches all the way up our sleeves, sew those sides together. So I'm going to grab a long length of my yarn. To measure out how much yarn I'm going to use to seam things together, I usually will measure the length of the seam plus a little bit extra, and that's been pretty much foolproof for making sure I have enough yarn to seam my sides. Now, there's going to be a lot of debate on how to seam it, which technique to use. I found for this, since you won't be seeing the seams, that a whip stitch works just fine. And you just want to make sure the tension on your whip stitch is not too much or too little. Okay, so I'm going to start from the ribbing side because that's going to be the easiest. And I'm just going to insert through the front and the back, pull through, and then I usually will tie a little knot here, leaving enough of an end to weave in later to start my whip stitch. So I'm just gonna weave through stitch for stitch through my ribbing. So that's stitch number 2, stitch number 3, and so on through the ribbing. And now we're at the body. We just want to keep things lined up because we're basically just sewing row for row. So there's no exact science to this. Just keep everything lined up and sew through, making sure you don't leave too much space between your whip stitches so that you don't have any gaping holes underneath the arm of your cardigan. I'm going to make sure those are weaved through really securely. I'm going to bring my loop around the top of my needle just to make a little knot here and bring it back through my knot. And that's how I like to close up my whip stitch. I'm going to remove my markers. And at this point, I want to sew in this end. And I usually will just go back through some of the stitches of my whip stitch to hide it and make sure it's nice and secure. Okay, I can cut that. I'd weave in the other end as well, but this is now your sleeve. And you should be able to comfortably fit your arm through here if you've been measuring it properly, of course, and you're working the right size. You'll want to do the same thing for the other side. Seam together your ribbing all the way up your sleeve to your marked stitches, and then this part of your cardigan should lay very comfortably over your neck and down the front of your chest. When we last left off, this is what we had of our cardigan. This is the full completed upper section, and now we're ready to move on to the lower section. The lower section begins by picking up stitches along the unworked ends of our upper left and upper right and along what will be the back here. So if we flip this over, we can look at the direction we're going to work. We're going to first pick up stitches here, work along this bottom edge, and then we're going to flip our work basically to work along this back edge and flip our work again to work along this right edge. Now the pattern will tell you how many stitches to pick up for your size, and that number is based on the gauge of the pattern. So we want to make sure that as we continue to work down this way that our project doesn't start to bow out or get a little bit too narrow. So that's why I've specified exactly how many stitches to work along each of our 3 edges here. Now I'm going to show you my method for how I'm going to evenly space those stitches. Everybody does it a little bit differently, and I'm going to show you mine. It is not scientific. It is not, I don't know, very sophisticated, but it gets the job done. So what I have here is what I'm going to use to represent my left front. So if you were looking at your project, it would be this section right here, because this is where we're going to start. We're going to start by picking up stitches here and working in this direction. So what I have here is meant to represent the rows that would still be open for us to work on the left front side for the smallest size. So for our smallest size, we're meant to work 28 stitches along this edge, and I actually have a visual aid that I will share with you all. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. I said don't laugh, okay? So I'm going to zoom down a little bit here and kind of talk you through how this makes sense to me. So I have 28 stitches that I need to work along this edge, and I've already counted them. I have 19 rows. Now this will be different for everyone because it really depends on how many rows you have left in this section. But here's how I'm doing it for my piece. So I have 28 total stitches that I need to work over 19 rows. Now when I say 28 stitches, I mean 14 extended single crochets and 14 chains. So I'm going to focus just on the extended single crochet stitches, and for this section I'm going to assume, which is true, that I'm going to pair an extended single crochet with a chain each time. So for the sake of my math, I'm just going to focus on my extended single crochets. So I have 14 extended single crochets to distribute over 19 rows, and that means I'm going to have 5 rows along this bottom edge here that I'm going to skip. Okay? Now what I do at this point is I make little baby circles, and each of these little baby circles represents my 19 rows. So I have 19 little baby circles here, and I need to distribute those 14 extended single crochets, and I already know that I'm skipping 5 stitches. So I'm going to focus on how I'm going to evenly skip those 5 stitches. Now, this is where a little bit of math and a little bit of trial and error comes in. Since I have 5 stitches to skip in 19 rows, I know that 5 evenly distributes through 20 4 times. So I know that I need to skip just about every 4th row. But as I go down this line and start to count where my stitches need to be placed, of course I don't have 20, so I'm going to fudge it and adjust it a little bit. So these are my 19 rows, and I know that I need to skip 5 total rows. I know it says stitches, but I'm skipping 5 total rows here. So for every 4th row, I know I'm going to skip. So this is my 4th circle, so I know I'm skipping that row. 1, 2, 3, I know I'm skipping that row. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm skipping that row. 1, 2, 3, and then I'm skipping that row. And then when I get here down at the end, I only have 3 left. I don't have 4, so I'm going to skip this last one. So I've got my 5 skipped, and then I have 14 rows left, and I know I'm working into each of those. So again, this is not super scientific, but it's going to get the job done. It's going to leave me with the number of stitches that I need. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit and show you how we're going to pick up those stitches and how we're going to work these rows. So we're going to start off by inserting our hook into the end of that first row, yarn over, pull up the loop, chain 3, and that counts as our first extended single crochet as well as a chain 1. So if we look at our bubbles that we created, we're going to place stitches in the first 3 rows and skip the 4th row. So this is my first extended single crochet and a chain 1 in my first row. Now I'm going to go into my 2nd row, chain 1, and my 3rd row, chain 1. Now I'm skipping my next row and then extended single crocheting each of the next 3. And this is all based on my diagram I made here. So I've done up to here so far, and now I'm working in each of the next 3 rows and skip the following row. So we're skipping this row, extended single crochet in each of the next 3. Of course, it's followed by a chain 1. There's 2, and there's 3. And skipping the next row. Extended single crochet in each of the next 3. Here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. Skipping the next row. Again, extended single crochet in each of the next 3. Here's 2 and 3. And I'm skipping the next row. Now, just like in my diagram, here I have 3 rows left, and I have 3 rows left on my swatch here. So in my diagram, I say to work in each of the next 2 and skip the last one. So I'm working in each of the next 2, my extended single crochet still followed by chains, and I'm skipping the last row. So let's go through and count. I should have 28 total stitches here. I'm going to tighten down a little bit so we can count through this together. So my first chain 3 plus my first chain 3 counts as an extended single crochet plus the chain. And remember, when we count our 28 stitches, we are counting our chain stitches. So we have 1 extended single crochet here with a chain, that's 2. Here's 3, and its chain makes 4. Here's 5, and its chain makes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, and this last chain here makes 28. Now at this point, if I was working on my full-size cardigan, I would have all my stitches up to here, and I would now flip to start working across the back. Now, if this method works for you, you can do the same method for the back and also for the right front. Then you just be starting right over here and distribute your stitches. You'll of course want to count how many rows you have so you distribute your stitches evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute some stitches evenly over my sample swatch here and show you what we're going to do to continue working down the back of our cardigan. And here we are. I've picked up stitches along my bottom edge, starting from my left front here, all the way around the back into my right front. So when I was working up my stitches, I always had the same side of my work facing me. And now we're going to start working in turned rows in our established pattern to continue the work. So remember, we start with the chain 3. We're going to turn, and then extended single crochet in the next single crochet, extended single crochet stitch, chain 1, extended single crochet in the next extended single crochet, chain 1, and we're working that all the way around. So it's the same stitch pattern we've been working for the entire body of our cardigan, but now we're just working in a different direction. No more increasing, no decreasing here. We're just working in our regular established pattern all the way around the body of our cardigan, and that's what's going to give us our length. And we also won't have any more seaming in our project either, now that the top half is already completed. So that's just a quick example of kind of how we're going to start adding some length to our cardigan, because now we're working in this direction. So you're going to keep working until the length that is mentioned in the pattern, and then we're going to get to our lower ribbing and come back and do part of that together. So here's what we have once we've completed this lower section to the correct length. Of course, yours is going to be much longer, much larger than mine is. And now we can move on to the next row, which is on the body lower section. And we're just going to single crochet in each stitch around. So similar to what we did before the ribbing on the right side sleeve. Oh, I chained up too many here. We're going to start with the chain 1 and turn our work, and single crochet in each stitch. So we're starting with this first extended single crochet right here, working into that stitch and into the chain space, into the next stitch, and into the next chain space, continuing on with our 6.5 millimeter hook. And this is going to get us set up for the bottom ribbing. So just continue working a single crochet in each stitch across to the other side of the row. Just a couple more stitches here. Last one goes into the second chain of the starting chain 3. And now we can switch to our 5.5 millimeter hook to start our ribbing. So for our ribbing, we're going to start with chaining 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we're going to go right back into our applied ribbing technique. So single crochet in the second chain from the hook, and each chain down. There's 3, 4, here's 5, and 6. We're going to flip our work around to start working around the single crochets that we made in our last row there. Slip stitch into the first 2 single crochets, turn our work, skip the slip stitches, and work up that row of single crochets just in the back loop. There's 3, there's 4, 5, and 6. Make sure you're working this bottom edge with your smaller size hook, the 5.5 millimeter. We end with a chain 1, turn, single crochet in the back loop of each single crochet. There's 3, 4, 5, and 6. Oop, there we go, 6. Slip stitch in each of the next 2 single crochets along your bottom edge here. There's 1 and 2, turn, and then we'll work back up just like we have been doing our applied ribbing for that right sleeve. So when you look at your project, look at the work that we're doing. We're starting here. You might be starting on the opposite side. It depends on what row, if you ended on a right side row or a wrong side row, it really doesn't matter. So we're going to work on putting our ribbing along the entire bottom edge, We're going to work all the way across the back and all the way across the front here. Once you're done, you'll want to cut your yarn, weave in your ends, and get ready for the next section. For this moderate style of blocking, you're going to need a few supplies. If you're watching this on YouTube, links to all of these supplies are below in the description. First, of course, you're going to need blocking boards. These give your project a firm surface to sit on, help your project dry evenly, and are soft enough to stick in pins if you need them. Some alternatives are kids' foam puzzle pieces or even a yoga mat. If all else fails, use a clean, thick blanket or some towels. You'll also need a garment steamer or a steam iron. Steam from the garment steamer helps to relax the stitches into a more pleasing shape. Steam blocking like this works especially well on animal fibers like wool, but you can also expect some mild effects on acrylic and acrylic blends. Here's my favorite steamer from Amazon. I've been using it for well over a year and I block all of my projects with it. A couple of optional items would be rust-proof T-pins or even knit blockers. These will help to pin parts of your project in place. You may or may not need them. It all depends on how misshapen your finished cardigan is. The very first thing that you want to do before you start blocking is to weave in all of your ends. I know there's some debate on whether or not to weave in ends first and then block or vice versa. I prefer to weave in the ends first, so when I'm done blocking, I know that I'm done. I should have woven in my ends before I started this video, but c'est la vie, go weave in your ends. Next, you'll want to place your blocking mats in the approximate shape of your cardigan. Make sure you pick a place that is going to be away from any small hands or mouths, any animals, anyone that might get their hands on the pins or on your project. You want to make sure that your project can stay in the same place until it is completely dry. So what I'm doing here is just stretching out my cardigan to its approximate shape, and I find that I've still got some overlap from that sleeve, so I'm putting down one more mat and I'm going to lay it out. And now, since this is the moderate method, I'm going to do as much as I can to get this cardigan into shape before I apply any steam. So I did decide to pin my sleeves, and the reason I did that is because I knew I'd be applying a bit of pressure downward to put just a little bit more length on my cardigan. I was able to get about an extra 1.5 inches doing it this way, so if you only need a little bit more length on your cardigan, pinning the sleeves and then applying a bit of downward pressure as you block should help. Now we're turning on our steamer, and it blinks while it's heating up, and you'll know it's hot when that light is solid. Almost there. Now it's party time. So when it comes to steam blocking, there's not a whole lot of rhyme or reason to it. I start at the ribbing because I want it to relax just a little bit, and I make sure I get the front and back side. Now you can see that I'm putting some steam, and then with my hand, I'm slightly stretching my fabric. I'm loosening up those stitches a little bit so they'll be nice and soft when I take it off the blocking board. I'm paying particular attention to my opening ribbing because of course it had that single crochet row that went around the entire ribbing, and I want to make sure that that row is relaxed and soft so that I don't have any puckering in the middle of my cardigan. And as I continue, particularly when I get towards the bottom, I'm applying a bit more pressure and pulling downward. I'm steaming on the inside as well as the outside of my cardigan to make sure that my blocking is even. You can see already that the side of my cardigan that's closest to the camera is slightly longer than the side that I haven't blocked yet. And that's where I achieved a little bit of that extra length. So now I'm moving on to the other side, doing the same thing, constantly keeping the steamer moving. I don't want it to stay put on any particular area. Not that it'll scorch the fiber at all, but I just want to make sure that everything is done evenly and smoothly. Still with my hand, kind of finessing those stitches downward and keeping everything nice and even, still giving myself a little bit of extra length on the bottom of my cardigan. At the opening on the very bottom, you'll probably see a little bit of curling or like a weird waviness for the first and last rows of that inside ribbing. You can go ahead and finesse that down and make that nice and smooth too. And now we're all done. I was just looking at my notes to make sure I didn't miss anything, and I'm good. I will move on to the more aggressive blocking method. You're going to need a garment steamer here too, as well as a mannequin or just a sturdy hanger. So you want to lay your cardigan over the mannequin, and then with your steamer, start to steam the entire garment. I work in kind of short strips from the top all the way down my project, pulling gently as I go. The weight of your cardigan will open the mesh stitches and create more length and more drape. You'll continue as needed until you get to the desired shape and length of your project. Now, with this method, you want to be cautious not to overdo it. Crochet stitches already do not have a lot of memory, which means that they don't bounce back much after being heavily manipulated. Now, as your project dries, it will kind of shrink up a little bit, but you're going to maintain most of the length that you achieve here. Once you are ready to let your project dry, you can do one of two things. Either leave it on the mannequin, or you can put it on blocking boards or a towel to let it dry. Either way works. The benefit of leaving it on the mannequin is that you'll probably maintain most of the length that you achieved from blocking. And if you put it down on towels, it will shrink up a little bit more and close those stitches up a bit. So at this point, I've just about finished my blocking. Looks pretty good, nice and even. I've got really good drape here, and I'm happy with this. Really happy. It's nice and loose across the shoulders. Looks pretty good.